another one.
All right. QA to data engineering. I've been contemplating a shift from QA, quality assurance, to data engineering, and I'm looking for some valuable insights from those who made the leap or are already thriving in the data engineering field. If you ventured into data engineering, could you please share your experiences? What led you to this direction and how did you prepare for it? Was the transition challenging? Do you find satisfaction in your new role? One of my concerns is whether my salary would see a significant improvement with data engineering. How has your salary progression been since making the switch? Additionally, I've always been drawn to the coding side of QA, but not so much the manual aspects. How do you find data engineering in comparison to QA when it comes to coding and other aspects of the job? I'm excited about the prospect of new opportunities and higher earning potential in data engineering, but I want to ensure I'll enjoy the work. Any advice or thoughts are greatly appreciated. Thanks for sharing your valuable insights, and you are very, very welcome. All right, so let's see. All right. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Awesome. Shout out to you. I look forward to speaking to you as well. Perfect. All right. So let's do this. Okay. So I almost said it's funny, right? Because I I actually forgot. Believe it or not, I forgot that I did data engineering, right? Um, at my last company, right? Very interesting turn of events happened. So they got rid of their data and analytics team, and they needed somebody to fill the gap until they figured out what they were going to do. So they said, "Hey, would you be interested in learning about data engineering?" And I was like, "No," but I did it anyways, right? Because I was like, "Hey, it's a good opportunity to learn a little bit more." Um, and mostly what I was doing was maintaining the existing workflows that the previous that the they call them the DNA team, right? The DNA team were handling. So I got familiar with using um SSMS, S let me see what those I can't remember those acronyms. So SSMS is SQL Server Management Studio, and then we had SSIS, which was SQL Integration Services, right? So, and I was using VS Code as well, right? Visual Studios, VS Code, with the SSM. So many different. What is it? SSMS. I don't know. There's so many SS things in there, right? But that's what I was using, right? And I got very familiar with extracting data. It was pretty much ETL process, right? Extracting data, transforming the data, and loading it into another environment. That's pretty much what I was doing. And I got pretty good at it, right? And it was cool, but it, I ultimately in that aspect of data engineering, right? Ultimately enjoyed QA more than I enjoyed that aspect of data engineering. However, I would say though, if I had to go to a if I had to move out of QA to another position, I would have used I would go to data engineering, right? I would go to data engineering and data science where I can go into machine learning because that part is to me that is much more exciting than the type of data engineering I was doing before because it was only ETL and I got to do some really cool stuff, right? I must say I got to do some really cool stuff, but I was still doing QA at the time and I was responsible for the QA automation and all that stuff, right? But if I had to no choice but to leave, QA to another role, or if I did have a choice, right? I would go to data engineering, and I would focus on like I'd be focused on like working with Python, doing like pandas, NumPy, matplotlibs. I would work on like Scikit to do like the machine learning and the predictive and all that stuff, right? I find all of that stuff very, very fascinating. So when I did some research on data engineering for like ETL developers, I forgot the exact title that it was. Let me pull up the resume and find out what it was. All right. Uh, yeah, on this one, I was a integration engineer. That's what it was, right? Integration engineer. So I was pretty much, moving data all over the place, right? Extracting data. Um and when I checked for the position of integration engineer, I didn't see these I didn't see for the amount of work that I had to do that the salary met it. So I was like, I'm better off being a QA engineer. However, when it comes to data engineering, like with with Python, because I'm still working through the class about that. Using Python, using the pandas, using the NumPy, using the matplotlibs. I find that absolutely fascinating, and I want to get into like the more analysis and stuff like that. Being able to pull in CSV files. And here's the thing, right? Here's the thing with the I found myself using some of these um some of these tools and packages and libraries in the stuff that I do for QA, right? Um Being able to pull in data, extract data, things like that. Um like I was saying the other day, I think it was last week, right? I was saying that I had a call with somebody that I had suggested they use APIs to be able to pull in the data that they're using to compile for their data science project, right? I said, use the APIs instead of going to the website. And I am like, okay, the reason that I was able to share with them how to use the APIs to pull in the data is because I use that in my QA engineering to use API to use APIs and like using the Python request or maybe using rest assured, whatever the case may be, to pull in the data. And now once you put in the data, now you can put it into the right structure. You can like I was mentioning for Jamar, you can pull in the data and put inside of a database, and you can use that database as your source. So many things that you do in QA, they are translated to other areas, right? And when you approach it with that QA mindset, you are very focused the details, like you're very focused on the things that are happening, right? So that's the part that I find absolutely fascinating, you know? Um and that when you that's why for me, I could easily pick up on these skills and transfer and transition. And guess what? When I asked in the chat to Tina Huang about how do QA engineers play a role in data science, right? Um, and the data engineering team, she gave me a very nice comprehensive answer of like, oh, they this is what they need QA for. So being from that QA mindset already, I think that if I was to end up transitioning to data engineering, that I would be able to provide some valuable insight and thinking process of like what QA is checking for, so we can have like a more robust testing ability and ability to get the data that we need and everything to that extent, right? So that's why I would say that, if you really wanted to make the jump to data engineering, first and foremost, you need to learn all the things about data engineering. For depending on the type of engineering that you're doing as well, then you might have a good pay increase, but you got to be good at what you're doing as well. And I would say definitely leverage your QA engineering skills into your data engineering, but you got to ramp up and everything like that. Um, And like for the integration engineering, I didn't find the coding that I was doing for data engineering to be as much as what I did for QA. But when I look at the data engineering, when you're doing like that you do with Python, I do find it to be a bit it's a little bit more, but also very comparable to what you do in QA because it's just a difference in creativity in the things that you're working on, right? But they all work together and they all need one another. So I don't think you could necessarily go wrong if you were to go into data engineering. Um, but, it just depends on you, all right? So, shout out to that question. I have to say, I really, really enjoy what I learned, in data engineering and working with data engineers. So, I'm going to my plan is to continue learning data engineering and to leverage it into things that I do on my own. Not necessarily go into it for a career, but, you never know. But, but definitely to continue learning it and leverage it as best as I can and help coach data engineers as well, right?
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.